Now for a look behind the headlines.
Thank you, Ruji. Welcome to the first episode of Don't Shout at the Telly with your host, Lalana Keith. Joining me on the sofa this evening, I have Joe, a librarian at Lambeth Palace, Tommy, an A-level student, Aisha, who likes to shop at Primark, Teresa, who is a politics student from West London, Michael, a waiter from North London, and Naomi, a big fan of the TV series 24. So, who would like to start us off? Aisha, what has caught your attention in the news this week?
Yeah, I've got the Guardian here, front page. Revealed the massive scale of the UK's water consumption. So, the Guardian's saying we're one of the biggest importers of water from all the virtual water that we use. So virtual water is the water that goes into the food that we eat and the crops that we use to manufacture our clothes and whatnot. So indirectly, every Western consumer is responsible for the use of thousands of litres of water a day from poor countries that are suffering from water shortages. So we've got to watch our diet, and we've got to watch the clothes that we wear to be conscious of our water footprint. So we have yet another footprint. So what next? Oxygen footprint, because we're all breathing far too much, too many people. So this actually does nothing to solve the water shortages in poor countries. It actually just deviates away from real solutions of investment for working water systems.
I mean, it kind of is portraying it as if we're taking the water straight from there.
Exactly, that's
which
ridiculous.
Is clearly not happening.
The idea that we're shipping all this water away from the poor countries who have droughts and all this, it's a ridiculous concept. When we were at primary school, we learnt the hydrological cycle. When water goes up, and then it comes down. My 7-year-old nephew knows that, and he would laugh at these facts and figures. I think we should just ditch all this and stop this anti-consumerism and just concentrate on real development.
Something else that comes out of that is the fact that other people, like most Western countries, aren't going to want to trade with these countries, with poorer countries, saying, oh, if I trade with them, I'm taking their water, I'm taking their products. So in the end, we're hindering them from developing. And instead of actually trying to help them, to help them with more processes, more methods of desalination, help them with their water, we're actually saying, do you know what, we're going to leave you alone with what you've got and you can manage that, which just doesn't make any sense at all.
Okay, let's hear from somebody else. Naomi?
One thing I read about was the recent interview of Prince Charles with The Telegraph. In this interview he talks about genetically modified crops, or GM crops, and he sees them as being the biggest ever environmental disaster. They're not valid arguments. A lot of these arguments are based on opinion from the Soil Association, which the Soil Association, they kind of do things with the whole organic movement, trying to push the organic movement, which Prince Charles is a big fan of, seeing as he has his own organic farm. But some of the arguments I picked up, which he mentioned, which were that GM will damage the earth soil or it will worsen the climate change. I don't think it's going to damage the earth soil. GM has shown potential benefits that it can in fact help or improve the earth soil through sort of reducing the amount of pesticides needed or the herbicide needed to be applied to the soil. Another thing he mentioned was about food security. Prince Charles doesn't believe that GM can help us with food security, but in fact some of the benefits of GM is that we can create higher yield crops. So from a smaller amount of land we can in fact get a higher yield, and this will improve food security, which is very important now with food shortages, also in developing nations where they aren't able to grow their own crops possibly because the land isn't fertile enough. There's potential to introduce genetically modified varieties which in fact can grow with using less amount of water, or they can grow in these soils which contain high salt in them. I think he's kind of just like saying, you know, like, wow, we've got to make everything organic, but organic is a personal choice. You know, you can choose. I mean, a lot of people are for GM, like, kind of, this is just kind of one side, Prince Charles's side of, like, no to GM, but we don't have this other side, like, where people are like, yay, come on, let's do GM. So this has kind of brought it into the news, like, with scientists now sort of saying that Prince Charles is in fact abusing his power, like putting his views on other people. Like, we need a voice for the people out there who want GM, which can improve food security and, you know, in developing nations and things like that as well. So,
well, who the hell is Prince Charles anyway? Why should we be listening to him? This is a man who thinks that good horticultural practice is talking to his plants in his greenhouse, really. And people fail to realise that the current set of tools available to even to organic farmers are based on genetic modification. I mean, the breeding process, which we've got most of the crops that we use, most of the livestock that we use, that's genetic modification, but much slower and more inefficient, because you're kind of breeding animals with certain attributes together to create the attributes that you want. And it's not as if the rural landscape that we have now is even natural in the first place. I mean, that is a sign of people making their mark on the environment and changing things for the better. So why people are afraid to go the next step, I just don't understand. It's bizarre to me.
Yeah, a story that's grabbed my attention this week is a Conservative Party and them believing that they can tackle the causes of poverty and poverty through the free market. And they're attacking Labour, and they're attacking them, saying that poverty can no longer be eradicated through the redistribution of wealth, or the supposed redistribution of wealth. Mm-hmm. But then, like, I would argue that where is this redistribution of wealth? Like, you know, I've seen no evidence of it. I don't think anyone's seen any evidence of redistribution of wealth, because like this whole tax credit system, that's actually only cutting back on the amount of tax poor people pay. It's actually not giving them anything. You know, how's the wealth being redistributed? They're still on the same income, they're still earning, or if they're on any income at all. So
I've been reading about the news recently that the elderly outnumber children in this country for the first time. So we've got headlines like a population time bomb in The Independent. There's the Times here, which talks about the future looks grey as pensioners outnumber children. The rise of the grey Britons in the Telegraph. And I think the only greyness that I can see in this is the fact that people aren't celebrating the fact that people live until they're 80. They're focusing on all the pension costs or the economy. Where's the positivity, you know? And there's a small section here that says there will have to be a massive investment in research into dementia. Well, good. It's about time, really. It's a problem we need to address. Whereas, can't we just approach it confidently rather than talking about it as a problem and this doom-laden message for the future? And I mean, I think it's a brilliant thing, and it's just telling that we as a society are so pessimistic nowadays that we can't view it as such.
Yeah, I mean, that's really sad that we can't celebrate, you know, longer lifespans. It just shows where we've come.
I'm just looking at this article in the Daily Mail, and it's basically saying stop buying these throwaway clothes, peers tell shoppers. So basically the House of Lords has written a report, and they've said that people shouldn't be able to buy cheap clothes anymore, because if people have cheap clothes, they're more willing to throw them away. Now, they're saying that's just too much wastage. Now, this is pretty odd coming from people who are rich and can afford to buy anything they want. Now, some people can't afford to actually go and buy clothes for £200 or whatever. So maybe they should be able to buy their cheap clothes. And these rich people are basically saying, we'll buy our expensive clothes, we'll change them whenever the season changes, but you can't buy the cheap clothes. You have to find a way to buy expensive stuff and keep them. It is so ridiculous to tell people not to shop for cheap because they don't want them to throw their clothes away. It actually makes no sense.
No, I mean, you described yourself as a Primark shopper yourself.
Yeah,
so.
I was saved by Primark this morning because I stayed at my boyfriend's house, didn't have any clean clothes, and I bought this for £1 in the morning. And I look nice and fresh and clean on camera.
Nice stuff.
yeah, I think it's great that like we can buy cheap clothes, because then it means like anyone can buy cheap clothes, and you know, we can actually have a wardrobe full of clothes for a change. Yeah, and look good.
So we all like to shop cheaply, I think that's fair. Well, that's all we have time for, I'm afraid. You've been watching Don't Shout at the Telly with Lilana Keith. Tell us what you think. Click on Viewers Bite Back and let us know what issues wind you up or what you think needs changing. Thanks.
That's all we have time for. I'm Riji Yasmin, you've been watching World Bites. We look forward to reading your responses online. Just click on Viewers Bite Back.